Welcome to this class. We cover three things in this class: urgent versus important, leadership styles, and just a heads up about your 360, and I'll give you a little bit of interpretation on that. So first, urgent versus important. I thought this was Stephen Covey. It turns out it's Dwight D. Eisenhower made this popular. You take a matrix. On one side are things that are not at all urgent, all the way to very urgent. And on the other axis are things that are not important to things that are very important. So by important, we mean long-term things that matter in the long run. Now, I find that most of you spend most of your time on things that are important and urgent. That's the stuff that's on fire, that you have to do because it came up right now and it actually is important to your customer or to the success of the project, or it just simply has to be done because it's important to, in the long run, that you not drop that ball. And then there are the time wasters. I don't see a lot of you wasting much time at work. Things like, I guess you could get lost in an email string or involved in a conversation that's really not important and not urgent for you. We do more of that at home. You can get sort of caught in a loop watching television or doing something. Not that all television is garbage. If you're intending to, you watch a game or something, that if you turn it on purpose, that's not garbage. But we can also sort of get lost there or surfing the web. Then we see this at work a lot. The squirrel behavior. That's where you're running around and you're doing urgent things, but they're not really important in the long run. So what would that look like? Well, you sometimes see those little snarky notices put up on people's cubicles. A lack of planning on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on mine. That's like, I'm not going to be a squirrel for you. So whenever you find yourself running really fast and not getting anywhere, you have to ask yourself, is this an important thing that I'm doing, and how can I not? I most often get caught in the next shiny thing. I get distracted by things that look interesting and end up doing things that seem really important right now and really aren't. Then there are those golden hours that you can spend doing things, attending to things that are important, but they're not yet on fire. One of you said in class that the goal is to take do as much as you can to attend to things before they light on fire, or to look at your list and say, what if I don't do it is likely to catch fire? So coming in the morning first thing and saying, okay, which things need to be attended to now so that I don't create an emergency later? The things that end up in this category are planning is a great piece of attending to things while they're important and not yet on fire. Thinking about your vocation, which is a lot of EIL time, is important and certainly not urgent. That's part of the reason it's hard to find the time to do it, because it's not on fire. I would call exercise, taking care of yourself, also those golden hours. This is a long-term perspective. It is important for your growth professionally and personally. Let's see. Well, if you keep being on fire, of course, that's stress and burnout. If you spend much garbage time, it's just, mostly leads to failure. And the squirrel a lot of time that's spent urgent and not important can feel really frustrating, and it can delay progress. So that's urgent versus important, and we have a sticker that goes along with it so you can fill out where are you apt to spend your time, and how can you spend more golden hours. That's urgent versus important. Now we'll look at 6 leadership styles by Daniel Goleman. There are a lot of variations of this. I think Goleman's is the most straightforward. So we begin with the commanding leadership style. That's the do what I tell you to do. because I'm your mommy. That's a commanding leadership style. Do what I tell you to because I'm the boss. I get to be the decider. There's actually a really good time to use this style, and that is in a crisis or emergency. On a battlefield, you actually want somebody who's in charge, who says, you go over there, you go over there. It's not time to discuss or debate. If you continue to do this when it's not a crisis and you're not on the battlefield, then it can be very negative. It can negatively affect productivity, certainly negatively affect morale. People feel devalued when they are led by only in a commanding style. There's not a good style or a bad style. The goal is to be able to move from one style to another when it's called for. If you think about them like tools, it's more helpful than this is my style of leadership. Everybody has a go-to style. Really what you're looking to do is develop all 6 abilities and know when each one is called for. So commanding is called for in crisis. Then there's the visionary, which is also called authoritative now. Goldman's changed the term. This is one that requires you to understand the people who you lead, to say, what matters to you? Come on, let's do it together. And to continue to set the vision for the future and really inspire people to join you in it. Oftentimes, these are also more charismatic leaders. These are not leaders who are likely to get in the weeds, and sometimes actually getting in the weeds is called for. So then there's affiliative. This is kind of a flat leadership style. The org chart would be much flatter. The leader is kind of one of the team. We're doing this together. I understand you. It's built on connection and strong emotional bonds. The downside of this leadership style is with those close connections, it can mean that poor performance is overlooked and the leader settles for mediocrity. It's sometimes hard to offer constructive criticism if you only do affiliative leadership. And then there's democratic. That just as it sounds, its decisions are made together. Lots of input goes into it. This is a very motivating leadership style for the team, and it can be very effective. It can also be pretty slow, because when you have to keep building consensus, that can feel tedious to people who just tell me what you want me to do and I'll go do it. And then we have pace setting, which we see a lot. This is driving for productivity. This is when you don't take your foot off the gas. And we see this a lot in leadership, just really driving their people for results, which is awesome, but you can't do it all the time. This can be really helpful if you have a big push, one thing you need to do, and you have that, okay, guys, I'm bringing in food. We've got 36 hours. Let's bang this thing out. That's pace setting in its finest. The problem is, if you don't take your foot off the gas when that project is done or when you're on to the next thing that's on fire, you're going to burn your people out. And they're either going to quit, or worse, they're going to quit and stay, because people can't be ridden like that all the time without the system breaking down. And then there is the coaching style. This is where you're really working to develop the members of your team. It's also connection-based. It's you in almost a teacher role. That also can be really helpful. It can be positive for your team members. It can also be slow. It's oftentimes, especially in the beginning, it's faster to do things yourself than it is to teach somebody else how to do that and wait for them to get up to speed. So coaching is slower in the short run, but has real advantages in the long run, because then you can delegate away big pieces instead. So we spoke about each of these, and then I asked the leaders to each consider which of these leadership styles are you least developed in. Really, if you're leading thoughtfully, there are going to be times where each of these is the right way to lead. So which one are you least likely to go to? And is there a way that you can cultivate your abilities in that leadership style to recognize when it's called for and to give it a try? And now just a word about your 360-degree assessment. You should all have them by now. I'm interested particularly in somewhere around the 4th page. There's this wheel. You being the self-evaluation is the purple one. If you look up here at conflict management, this person, does not excel in conflict management, but everybody's in agreement about that. He or she knows that, and so do the people around this person. So that's a fine thing if you know where you need work and everybody's in agreement about that. The more interesting places are where you diverge from others. So this person thinks that they don't invest much in people, and their supervisor believes they invest a fair amount. So that would be an interesting conversation. HR has received an electronic copy of your 360, but your supervisor has not. That's your job. We thought it best if you forwarded your 360 to your boss. That way you can include whatever notes you'd like to, and then plan to follow up with your boss. And next week's coaching is designed around your 360, if that's what you and your coach want to work on. That's it.